We're right here on 31st and High at Mount Peace Cemetery, and my elementary school is right across the street, Ethel Island Elementary, and my middle school is straight through this graveyard to the right. When I was walking to school, sometimes I would cut through the graveyard with my friends. It was a shortcut. Sometimes I would cut through the graveyard to avoid running into my mother. So during her addiction, she would come to the house really early in the morning asking for money, and my grandmother would always, turn her away. But when I had to go out to go to school, I would run into her often. And my grandmother gave me $2.50 for school, and a lot of times I would give my mother some of the money. When I didn't feel like running into her to avoid feeling embarrassed, to avoid feeling humiliated, I would cut through this graveyard. And Mount Peace was perfect because it did give me a sense of peace. Imagine walking to a graveyard to avoid feeling trauma, to avoid feeling fear, to avoid feeling afraid. The graveyard was always very peaceful. And a lot of kids did it. A lot of us, it was just a shortcut. So we would group up together and walk through the graveyard. It was a straight shot. But there is irony when I think about running away from my mother, walking to school. There was lots of anxiety, and this is how I started my day. I didn't always tell my grandmother that I ran into my mom on the way to school. I didn't tell my grandmother that I was giving her my lunch money. I could tell that my grandmother was carrying a lot. She was upset in the mornings, and I just didn't want to cause any more disruption or make her more upset when I would come home from school. So I just kept certain things to myself. But my friends understood, and I enjoyed walking through the graveyard. I enjoyed reading the tombstones and looking at the flowers that were left. I loved one. It gave me a sense of peace and gave me a sense of calm. But these are the stories, these are the tales of what it was like being a child of an addict. I didn't feel like I always wanted to fight my mother. She would become very argumentative if I didn't give her money or if I ignored her, and I was afraid of what humiliation, might come from us arguing. So I just tried to really please mom, go away. Tried to be very respectful. We didn't talk negatively about my mother, and so I tried my best to not be disrespectful towards her, even though she would say things to me that were not always out of kindness, but I understood that it was her addiction. I understood that she was sick. I understood those things. So yeah, walking through the graveyard was my way of calming my nerves. And I don't know, I used humor to mask what I was really feeling. I smiled a lot. I hid a lot of my trauma behind my smile. And so it is nostalgic being here. Look at all these beautiful trees down this walkway. It was very peaceful. We have Fairmount Park, which is close. We have our playground, but the graveyard was peaceful to me. It is peaceful being here. I'm carrying my mother's photo today. So beautiful. Yeah. I wonder what other tales, children like me have about the alternate routes they would take to go to school, or the things that they did, giving away their lunch money, just the things that we don't talk about, things that we don't give voice to. There was not a lot of dialogue around these types of things. We just operated, we just did what we had to do. And, the older I get, and especially now having children, I can only reflect on my childhood and my youth and what it was like for me to experience some of the things that I've experienced. I'm just so grateful for the story, so grateful for the book, so grateful for the healing and staring trauma in the face and addressing all the shadows and all the things that I left buried, because this was not something that I ever thought was not normal. Cutting through the graveyard to avoid my mom was normal. That was normal for me. It should not be a normal route for a child, but it was normal for me.